Hi there. Welcome back to Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor. I'm your host, Paulina Cossette, a former political science professor turned full-time freelance academic editor, and I'm here to help you take the leap out of academia and into a flexible, fulfilling career. In today's episode, I'm pulling back the curtain to give you an honest, unvarnished look at what a typical day in the life of a freelance academic editor really looks like. I know that making the jump out of your comfort zone of academia can be terrifying. If you haven't yet listened to my story, head back to episode 1 of the podcast to hear how and why I decided to leave. Today, I'll be sharing what my day-to-day life looks like, working from home, setting my own schedule, and balancing time as a wife and mom of 2, all while earning over $100 an hour and working just 30 hours a week. Whether you're already dreaming of leaving your academic job or you're just starting to explore the idea of freelancing, this episode will give you a clear picture of the rewards, the challenges, and the everyday realities of life as a freelance academic editor or coach. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfy, and let's dive in. Welcome to Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor, the podcast. I'm your host, Paulina Cossette. In 2019, I was a political science professor who was fed up with the stress and hostility of academia, not to mention the low pay. I left my tenure-track job and went from barely surviving to thriving as a freelance academic editor. Today, I own Acadia Editing Services, an editing and coaching business that brings in 6 figures a year. In this podcast, I'll discuss the challenges of academia, what academic editing involves, and what life as a freelancer looks like. If you're willing to jump outside your comfort zone, it is possible to find joy, true flexibility, and a profitable and rewarding career as an academic editor. Thanks for listening. If you're considering leaving academia, believe me, I know how scary that can feel. But in my experience, leaving academia was only scary while I was trying to decide whether or not to do it. Once I cut the cord and left, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Jumping into freelance work after having a salaried job with benefits can also be a bit nerve-wracking. But I'm here to tell you that freelancing does not have to mean instability or feast or famine. In my program, Becoming an Academic Editor, I guide you through the steps of building an academic editing or coaching business that can give you a sustainable and comfortable income for years to come. But today, my goal is to show you what my daily life looks like, so you can see that freelancing really is a normal and healthy career that can bring you a lot of joy and stability, potentially even more so than academia has. All right, let's start with my mornings, which are probably my favorite part of each day. Most days, my alarm goes off around 6 a.m. My kids are still little, so I help them get dressed and brush their teeth while my husband makes breakfast. It's a bit of organized chaos, filling backpacks, finding missing shoes, and negotiating which jacket is actually warm enough for a Maine winter. But by 7 a.m., my husband and the kids are off to school drop-off, and I finally have a quiet moment to sip my coffee before the day really begins. Next, I make time for a quick workout, shower, and breakfast. I usually make a second, very large cup of coffee because mom life. But around 8 a.m. is when I finally get that first real breath of quiet and I can switch into work mode. My home office is pretty simple. I've got a stand-up desk, a comfortable chair, my laptop, and 2 big monitors. I love natural light, so I keep my desk near the window that overlooks our dooryard. If you're not from Maine, that's the driveway. Of course, one of the best things about freelancing is that my office can really be anywhere. There are days when I drive into town for a massage or to get my hair done, and then I grab lunch at a local cafe. I work from a cozy corner of the coffee shop and do plenty of people watching before it's time to pick up my kids from school. The pace of my work is relaxed, and I get to decide where I want to be and when. The freedom to work from anywhere with an internet connection really is a game changer. More importantly, this flexibility means that if one of my kids has a school event or is sick, I can adjust. There's no department chair to ask for permission, no classes to work around or reschedule. I just shift my editing to a time that works better for me. And full disclosure, this does mean that I occasionally spend time working on a weekend or at night if I have a deadline to meet. But these occasions are rare. I think it's also important to note that I end each workday during the week by 1:30 p.m. so that I can pick up the kids from school. So I'm basically working 8 to 1:30 on weekdays with a 30-minute break for lunch. That's just 25 or at most 30 hours a week. Ultimately, owning my own business lets me be present for my children while also prioritizing a career and work that fulfills me. I never feel like I owe anyone an explanation for putting my kids or myself first, and I don't feel guilty about that. Now that you've heard about my overall schedule, let me turn to what the work of a freelance academic editor looks like and how I juggle editing projects with running my coaching programs. Most of my editing projects involve working with graduate students or faculty who need support with their academic writing. For example, I might spend the morning deep in a graduate thesis, reviewing everything from grammar and clarity to formatting and citation style. I also work with faculty on research papers, helping them refine their arguments, polish their writing, and make sure their work is ready to submit to a journal. I almost always edit in Microsoft Word. I rely heavily on tools like track changes and comments to give detailed, constructive feedback. I also use Word's auto text tool to avoid having to type out the same comments over and over. These are things like, please clarify, or please add this source to the references list. These tools save me a ton of time. Since I bill all of my projects using a per word rate, increasing my editing speed by using these shortcuts allows me to earn more per hour of work. Another big part of my work is finding balance between editing and running my business. Some days I'm fully focused on editing projects, getting lost in the deep work of a manuscript and letting the hours fly by. Other days I'm splitting my time between client projects and coaching calls for my group program, Becoming an Academic Editor. I love connecting with the members of my community and helping them navigate their own journey into freelancing. There's also digital marketing for academic editors, my monthly membership program where I teach established editors how to attract more clients. I set aside time each week to plan new content, record videos, and engage with the community in our Slack channel. Of course, running a business isn't just about the editing or coaching work. There are always marketing and administrative tasks that need attention. Things like responding to emails, invoicing, and planning future projects. I've gotten pretty good at working efficiently by setting up systems to manage my time effectively. One strategy that works well for me is batching my work. For instance, I'll dedicate a whole morning to editing and then switch gears to work on content for my programs or record an episode for this podcast. I try to get the deep, focused work done first thing when my mind and the coffee are freshest, and I save the administrative and lighter tasks for midday. I'm constantly thinking about how to provide value to my audience, whether through courses, coaching, or free resources like this podcast. Overall, my days have a nice mix of structure and flexibility. There's always variety, which keeps things interesting, and the freedom to choose what I focus on each day makes a huge difference in how fulfilled I feel. So, to wrap up, let me give you some of the major pros and cons of freelance editing work. Let's start with the pros because there are a lot of them. First and foremost is flexibility. I set my own schedule, which means I can work when I'm most productive and take breaks when I need them. If my kids have a school event in the middle of the day, I can go without asking anyone for permission. If my family wants to travel, or if we decide to try out living abroad, which is looking better and better these days, I can bring my work with me. As long as I have my laptop and an internet connection, I am good to go. Another huge pro is the earning potential. These days, I earn, on average, $150 an hour for my editing work. And because I run my own business, every ounce of energy and effort is for me, not for some ungrateful administrator. The work I put in directly impacts my income, which is incredibly empowering. And if I ever feel like a certain type of editing work isn't exciting to me anymore, I stop doing it. I get to choose how I spend my days, and there is nothing better than that. There's also a lot of variety in the work itself. One day I might be diving into a psychology dissertation, and the next I'm helping a faculty member polish their tenure packet. It keeps things interesting, and it helps me continue learning, which I love. And of course, I get to avoid all the bureaucratic headaches of academia. No more pointless meetings, no more office politics, and no more being voluntold to join committees or do other kind of service. I decide what I work on and with whom I spend my time. But of course, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, so let's talk about the cons. One of the biggest challenges is that you're self-employed, so there's no institution providing you benefits or contributing to your taxes. I've learned to manage this by budgeting for these costs on a quarterly basis. Once you start to get steady work coming in, you can estimate what your annual earnings will be, how much you'll owe in taxes, and how much of that income you'll need to spend on health insurance and retirement savings. If you don't have a partner to help cover these costs, it can be stressful, but with a bit of planning, you can succeed. Another challenge is that because you're running a business, you wear a lot of very different hats. You're not just an editor, you're also your own marketing team, admin assistant, and IT support. You could be your own accountant too, but I recommend just hiring someone for that. It will save you a lot of time, and when you're freelancing, time is money. But all of these tasks can be learned. You're smart, talented, and creative. You can learn how to be an advanced user of Microsoft Word, and keeping track of your projects and income can all be done in an Excel spreadsheet. It's not really that difficult, it's just new. But you, my friend, are an academic, which means that you love learning new things. So don't let this stuff intimidate you. Just look at it as a learning opportunity that can really pay off. Next, while the flexibility is amazing, it does take discipline. You have to keep track of projects and deadlines, and you sometimes are juggling multiple projects at a time. You also have to be flexible because clients are people too. They get sick, their kids get sick, they don't write as quickly as they thought they would. It's important to handle these changes with kindness and grace while still holding your boundaries to maintain your own work-life balance. Finally, while I love the quiet focus of editing, it can be a bit isolating. I don't have colleagues to chat with by the water cooler. That's part of why I started my programs, Becoming an Academic Editor and Digital Marketing for Academic Editors, to build a community of like-minded people and avoid that sense of isolation. Overall, though, for me, the pros of freelancing far outweigh the cons. I get to do work I love on my own terms with people I enjoy working with, all while being present for my family. It's not always easy, but it is absolutely worth it. If this episode has sparked your interest in freelance editing or coaching, or if you've been thinking about leaving academia, I would love for you to check out my programs and resources at acadiaediting.com/become-an-editor. And of course, if you have any questions or want to share your story, please reach out. I would love to hear from you. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope this honest look at a day in my life as a freelance academic editor has been helpful. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, sharing it with a friend, or leaving a review. It really helps. Until next time, take care and keep building the life you want, one step at a time. If you're unhappy in academia and you think you might be a good editor or writing coach, check out my course, Becoming an Academic Editor. This digital course is paired with a 12-week group coaching program to support you through your decision to leave academia or not, and to start building a profitable and rewarding academic editing business. Learn more by going to acadiaediting.com/become-an-editor. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time.